안녕하세요. I'm Shiwang. I'm from South Korea and I speak Korean.
Привет, I'm Katya. I'm from Russia and I speak Russian.
Bonjour, I'm Alban. I'm from France, so yep, I speak French.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Mariam and I am from Senegal.
Hello and welcome to Underground Sonic, a podcast centering local musicians and their surrounding community through field recording. I'm your host Zara, and this is Soundbyte. Soundbyte centers everybody else in the community that makes the music possible. From sound engineers to event hosts and even artists that make flyers for the event, this is the space for them. And it's also a space for me to talk about sound-related topics, whether by myself or with a guest. For the first episode, we're talking about the relationship between language and music. So I thought it'd be fitting to record the intro music at Planet Word, a museum in DC all about language learning. It's so fun to see how they bring words into life and the different kind of sections of the museum that help visualize language or animate stories. I'm talking about like that library where you can put books on a table and visuals come up. That's really cool. I really enjoy the space. Check it out if you're in DC. I'll section this out by talking about written text and spoken word. So let's start with written text and some history. So a little while back I learned about neumes. They're early music notations that were placed on top of letters to indicate pitch and melody change when reciting Gregorian chants and medieval liturgical text. Their development began in the 8th and 9th century to shift from memorizing music by heart to reading it through an agreed upon and uniform system. And over time it became the 5-staff music notation system that we use today. When I first learned about neumes, I immediately thought of diacritics, or accent marks, that we use in various language. Think of the mark on top of the last E in resume, or the little squiggle on top of the N in jalapeno. Those are accent marks, and they indicate to us that there's a certain way to pronounce that letter. When I first came across neumes, I specifically thought of Arabic diacritics. Now, the Arabic alphabet is consonantal, which means that it contains mostly consonants, and vowels are indicated through diacritics, specifically harakat, or short vowels. Like neumes, they are placed above or below letters to indicate intonation, where to place emphasis, and establish a uniform pace and rhythm for pronunciation. Harakat are written out in formal text, poetry, and religious texts. Unlike neumes, however, they exist in both secular and religious realms. Now, because of the religious nature of neumes, I immediately thought of the Ithan, or call to prayer. So in a mosque, there is a mu'adhin, who is an individual projecting the prayer call. They're signaling that it's time to pray, and fills up the surrounding street with his familiar rhythm. This is really common practice in countries where Islam is the dominant religion. I haven't come across an area in the US where this happens. I think mostly, at least in the DMV, because of sound issues. It's loud. You can hear it from a couple blocks away from the mosque. So I could see why it's not done here, at least not projected to the street, but I know it's done inside of mosques. I haven't heard it in a while myself, at least not projected in the street. But luckily my friend Aber was in Egypt recently and was kind enough to send me a recording of a prayer call there. Take a listen. I've had a few conversations with friends about the Ithan and how they feel about it, whether from visiting Arabic-speaking countries or countries where Islam is the dominant religion, or just from hearing it in TV. they usually tell me that they thought it was a song or a radio broadcast in some way. This is similar to Neumes because there is no music sheet to guide the reciter. There are no music notations. It's done through reading the words on the page and referring to the diacritics on top of the words to know when to stop, what to emphasize, and how to go about broadcasting this call. The harakat inform the reciter. And of course, teachers help prepare the mu'adhin as well. And anybody doing and learning how to recite religious text. There's always somebody helping out too. It's not just reliance on reading. Outside of the religious realm, harakats still exist. In books, they ensure that beginner learners know how to pronounce things properly. This exists in English too. Not the harakat, but the fact that when we read, we're expected to pronounce things a certain way. There are pre-established rhythms that we're learning to pronounce. So to what degree do those written and read rhythms translate to colloquial speech? There are a million ways to pronounce something. How we say things matter. Where we place emphasis, our volume, and our tone all communicate something. In linguistics, this concept is called prosody. It can tell us a lot about a person, how they're feeling, for example, if they're tired or sleepy and happy, or even where they're from. The different ways we pronounce things can feel a little like genres, like music genres. The same lyrics, for example, can be sung in different keys and rhythm respective to any given genre, and it might change the meaning of the song or highlight different parts of it that might not be apparent in the original recording or original intended genre. That's why I think covers are so cool, especially the ones where the genre is completely flipped, because they act as a way of seeing the song from a different perspective. Lately I've come across covers of Heya by Outkast, but the twist is they sing it in a Elliott Smith kind of way, so it's a little slowed down, it's a bit shoegazy, and it definitely highlights different parts of the song. To give another example, we see this a lot in music that is sung in different languages. A couple years ago, a remix titled Do You Love Me got popular. Maybe you've heard it. The remix is based on a song from the late 1970s, also called Do You Love Me, by the Bendali family. They used the Arabic scale, or maqam, to sing English lyrics. Mid-song, though, they flip to a more Western scale, and they go on that way for a bit. The Arabic accent of the vocalist from the beginning of the song disappears completely, and it's as if you're listening to a Western song from that era. And then they switch back to the Arabic scale like nothing happened. I love it. It really is a testament to what I'm talking about and how accents and genres are intertwined. People who speak Arabic singing English isn't new and wasn't even back then. But it's interesting how they blend maqam with English words, forcing themselves to sing those lyrics in a certain way to follow the system and its rules, and then switching into Western scale effortlessly, and then back again. Many bands that were based in the Arab world dabbled with various genres. And we have Habibi Funk to thank for platforming all the funk and jazz bands who were on the fringes during the time. More locally, I recently came across Nabil, a musician from Richmond singing in Iraqi over indie and shoegaze rhythms. And there are many more examples of this, switching between genres, switching between scales, and just playing around with different things to create a really unique and cool sound that is more accurate of the performers who are singing it. I like viewing accents as genres, because it really places the musical dimensions of language front and center. There really is no right way to pronounce something. Especially as someone who learned English as their second language, I learned this time and time again. So much of how I thought words should be pronounced came from my knowledge of Arabic pronunciation. And even now, when I learn new words in Arabic, for example, I have to think a little, switch between modes of pronunciation, between the English standards and the Arabic standards. To get the usual rhythm, it really goes both ways. It's so cool and definitely enriching to be surrounded by people who speak differently than me. Especially in the DMV, we have so much diversity here. It allows us to reframe biases, assumptions, and even stereotypes, and hopefully celebrate one another for our daily musical talents through the words that we speak. We can spend an entire episode deep diving any of the topics I discussed today, from music notation development to Arabic diacritics to how a written text is a form of musical score, how the way I'm speaking right now has its own rhythm, and how from place to place, from context to context, our way of speaking change. Code switching, anyone? I hope that this general introduction opens doors of curiosity for you. Email or DM Underground Sonic if you have any comments or questions. I'd love to continue this conversation with you all. I included some links below that helped me formulate this episode that I think you might find useful as well. I'll link them below, and I'll have some of the music mentioned above in the description as well. Thank you for listening. This has been Underground Sonic. I'm your host, Zara, and stay tuned for the next episode. So that when Daddy comes, you can play. But why? Because you're tired.